episode of Artist Talk. My name is Anton Malbauer. I'm a founder of Deep Dive Dance non-profit organization, which is hosting this interview. Before we start, please consider subscribing to our channel right now, sharing this video on your social media, or simply giving us a like. This will help our project to grow. Today, I'm really happy to welcome here my former colleague and a friend, Spanish choreographer and a fantastic, wonderful artist, Iván Pérez. Iván has started his dancing career with IT Dansa in Barcelona and later joined world-famous Netherlands Dance Theatre in Holland, where he had a chance to perform works by world most acclaimed choreographers. His full choreographic debut took place in 2011, also at Netherlands Dance Theatre with the piece entitled Flesh. And since then, Iván has created numerous works around Europe. Currently, Iván is artistic director of Dance Theatre Heidelberg in Germany, with whom he creates big-scale works. Let's start!
Hello.
Hello. Hello. Thank you so much for joining. Let's start from beginning of it all, as I usually do with all my interviews. How did you discover dance in your life?
Yeah, I was 10 years old, or maybe 9. My parents, they took me to see a show in Alicante from Victor Ullate. I remember we were in the first row, so I hardly saw them standing. I only remember seeing bodies jumping out of nowhere, and so I was really mesmerized. And I remember being in the taxi or in the car, checking with my father afterwards. And what is this company's name? Victor Ullate, and I'm like, what is this? And so from there, I got really curious, and then my father started giving me videos of Pilar Lopez, José Bailarín, so it was mostly flamenco. And yes, soon after I was dancing already in a school, in the neighborhood, like something small, and in restaurants. He was taking us in the summer, in the hotels in Alicante, very young and right away dancing. It was like an explosion in my life.
How and why did you join Netherlands Dance Theatre?
Yeah, I was at the time studying in Madrid, maybe 16, 17 years old, and we were studying dance history. So of course we were looking at artists from the 20th century, like Pina Bausch, Matsek, Yuri Kylián, and I remember watching Bella Figura in one of the videos, and then I met the Netherlands Dance Theatre through that. And then I found out that there was a scholarship in a competition in Castellón, the Dabaldos Fletcher. So immediately I prepared myself to go there. And so when I was 19 years old, I got the scholarship to go to NDT 2 as an apprentice. So I was very lucky. I got the opportunity to be there. And yeah, that was the way I kind of sneak in.
You've been for a couple of seasons, quite a while with this company, and of course you had an opportunity to work with many world-renowned choreographers, but who was your favorite, if you can choose one, if you could pick choreographer to work with and to perform the work on stage?
There were many experiences. I mean, we're talking 7.5 years or 8 years in a company that is constantly producing and inviting choreographers. So I remember all kinds of choreographers, like many interesting from Japan or Brazil. Like you remember we were together in a piece from Enrique Rodovalho.
Yes.
And so we had opportunities to meet very rare choreographers, but also, of course, meeting Ohad for the first time was incredible. And then working with people from Foresight was also very revealing. So every time we met kind of landmark choreographers, like Matsek, or every time you meet them in person or you work with them, it's of course a kind of life-changing experience for me. It was like that. But of course, being in the creations with Kylián was very, very precious to see how he works with people, even to not even dance with him, but observe him work was great. And yeah, at the end, of course, having Crystal Pike coming in with so much excitement, so much talent, we were all taken by her power. Or seeing even Alexander Ekman starting. I mean, we were together dancing. I was in his first piece. Then I was supporting him, also assisting later on. So it was a really long process of seeing all kinds of choreographers coming out.
And now that you have this kind of, I would say, luggage or experience of working with that many choreographers, and now also being quite established choreographer yourself, is there a choreographer that it inspires you today?
I mean, I can only mention one person, which is Marina Mascarell. I mean, we grew up together, we studied together, we were in NDT always bouncing off ideas and being on each other's works when we started. So she was always very impressive. I mean, many people that can listen to this interview probably knows this piece that she made, The Ice History. It's on YouTube. We were dancing, I remember 2008, and she was explaining the piece before she made it, and she hasn't done many works. And that premiere was incredible. I mean, it was life-changing for her, for me, and for many people that were watching. So I would say Marina she's my rock and roll supportive.
Also during your time at the NDT, when you were still quite young, both of your parents unfortunately passed away. And I wanted to ask you, how was this traumatic experience for you, and how did you deal with it to keep going, to keep creating art, to being active as a dancer, to continue to carry on?
Dancing helped me, for sure, coming back to dance, even though it was not easy. I remember both of my parents saw me when I was in NDT as an apprentice at Charles Wells. They traveled to London and they saw me perform, and it was really amazing time. And then I had to leave NDT, went to IT Dansa, and when I came back 1 year later, my father was not there. And so I remember the first day of my official contract in NDT2, the directors and the ballet masters giving me their support on the passing of my father. And so I already started the first season when we met with that kind of tension. And so my second season, when I recovered, I was feeling better, feeling stronger, and there was a program of Kylián's works, a triple bill. It was again a strong moment for me. I remember performing for the Queen in the premiere, such a highlight for me. My mom was there, and then in February is when she passed away. So I came back from the funeral, and 1 week later they announced that I was nominated for the Swan Best Interpretation for one of the pieces of that evening that my mom was there that day. And I remember that feeling. So again, I was dropping to the ground and having to rebuild my confidence. But in a way, it was through dancing that I also got to meet myself. I made a solo afterwards called Polvo, which was a solo dealing with that. And in a way, I used dance as a vehicle to cope with my trauma. And then more and more that developed into making work about trauma, like young men at BalletBoyz, for example, or dealing with interpersonal relationships and dance and emotion and how do they combine. So it was a really teaching experience for me.
Now that you started to mention solo that you made, and I know you even did works before NDT already, interest in choreography showed up in you quite early. But how did it happen? Where and when and how the interest in choreography, making choreography yourself, came around or about?
It was, for me, always intertwined. I mean, since I was watching these videos from choreographers and Antonio Gades, amazing Spanish dancer and flamenco choreographer too, and I was always looking up to him in these films. And then I was in a school, 10 years old. I learned a lot of choreographies. Then I went to the conservatory, 11 years old, and they asked after 3 months at school, everyone has to make a solo before Christmas, something simple. And I got used the music, Las Bodas de Luis Alonso, from Jerónimo, very big musicians. It's like orchestra, classical music, and I put castañuelas, flamenco shoes, and I put together material that I've learned the previous year. I guess that's all I did, a kind of composition of my own. And the teachers were overwhelmed, and I had to do it again. And that solo helped me move on to another level. So always creating helped me in my dancing career, and they were combined. So I studied in Madrid choreography and interpretation and dramaturgy when I was 16, 17. We were the pilot project of the degree in choreography. So I was the first generation in Spain doing a kind of high education on choreography before I went to NDT. So when, as you saw me in NDT, every year we were doing workshops, and I was always, of course, doing one workshop. I never failed, and so I was always very interested in creating and even directing.
After this smaller work, a big full-on choreography debut happened with NDT2 with the work Flash.
It was very scary when I found out. I was, of course, looking forward to it, and I've been always ambitious, but also very sensitive person, and so it was a combination of wanting and then being scared. Yeah, this is really interesting place, because when we see choreographers or people that are, let's say, achieving certain kinds of things, then you forget that there is a human being behind, and so I've been always in relationship to that. And it was the first moment I was creating for NDT2. It was a very important moment, and my parents, like you said, they were very present in my story, so I dedicated the piece to them and made some kind of, like homage to their life and love, and talking about memory. So it was a very special evening.
And since then, you choreographed for many companies around the world, and including like Paris Opera. 2 questions regarding that work that you made for them, which is titled Male Dancer. First of all, how was the experience of working with such a big institution and with such a big traditions? And second question, it's why Male Dancer?
Like, since I made Flash, I opened a YouTube channel, and I started just sharing my work, and all kinds of responses, good and bad, and in between. I chose to be a millennial and follow my instincts and just open there. And it's funny because I never had a manager really guiding me. I was on my own, but things were happening very fast. And it's interesting because the director of NDT2, when I told him, Aurélie Dupont invited me to go to the Paris Opera, the first thing he asked me was, how did you manage that? And I answered, YouTube. That's all that she's been she was following, she was interested, she was curious, and she dared to call me. She told me, okay, I want to work with you, not only because I would like to dance your work or to watch your work, I like to watch your work, but also because you're a nice person. Like, what do you mean? It's like, I want to give my dancers a positive experience, and that's what she wanted, to bring kind of nice atmosphere into the company. And so I was really happy when I heard that, because it's the best compliment you can get, for me at least, to have a director already thinking that you're going to bring a positive energy. But also then the Male Dancer was her request. She asked me to do a piece with men only, and I've already done it in BalletBoyz, so she knew this was a possibility. She also liked a lot a transition, which is a workshop I did in 2010 in NDT, also with 3 dancers. She was attracted to see me working with male dancers, and in the evening also Hof Schechter was presenting a piece with female dancers, so for her that made sense. And for me it was also very interesting to keep, in a way, expanding something I was already busy with and curious about, which is masculinity on stage. For me, what was interesting always was being a male dancer myself, and having to deal with my own emotions in a very harsh way, coming from, we were talking about this trauma with Polvo, this solo. My work right away connected with me as a male person, dealing with emotions and trauma and exposing that on stage. And so if you look at the trajectory of the work, it's very much about that. And when we look at men, especially in an institution like the Paris Opera, which in a way we have codified what a male should do, what a female should do so strongly, coming from ballet history, putting that into question becomes even more important. Yeah, I brought the tricky, in a way, angle of working with Palomo Spain, Alejandro Palomo, which is a fashion designer from Spain, shooting to the stars and being transgressive, almost Almodovar-like. In a way, I was being, of course, self-conscious, because why am I taking such a big risk being so young, in a way, to be in that kind of institution doing that? I mean, but at the same time, I'm living my life and I can't escape that roller coaster of emotions right prior to take a chance like that. So for me, it was an opportunity.
What are the biggest challenges that you are facing being artistic director and leader of a group of artists?
It's a lot of pressure to handle, and being a director is also being a listener and being open, and it can be very hard to surrender to what's there, but it's also very rewarding if you're capable of entering conversation with what's around you and act in accordance to that and support the flow. And this is what I feel like I've become a kind of supporter of a flow, of a sustainability, of some kind of productivity, but also growth of the people that is around me and my own growth. And I think as long as I'm connected with that, I'm doing the right thing. And I've been doing a trilogy about the Millennial generation upon starting. So I decided, okay, my first 3 years, I'm going to focus on that, on what does it mean to be a millennial entering into a sort of power position, a position where I can act and shape the reality of the people I work with and the scene at large. And so I was asking myself these kind of questions, and I was also confronted with myself being very ambitious, wanting a lot. I was not self-entitled, but in a way it came to me, the opportunity. And so things were somehow flowing, and I could see myself escalating into wanting and expecting. And
what kind of qualities or virtues you try to pass on to your artists, to your dancers?
I start from the passion. I think I am a passionate person. I've been always, I give myself to the studio and to the work. I love it. And so I know it's endless. And I know if I give myself to it and invest, it's going to give me back. Mm-hmm. And this is what I'm trying to pass on. My love for the profession. And I see that once you inspire people to go there, they will receive. And I see that in my dancers, they are enriched by what they do. Then, of course, there is a lot of knowledge that comes from the experience I've had. And some of them tell me, oh my God, you're young, but you seem to have wisdom. I'm like, oh, I don't know about that, but I know what I know, and I'm willing to share it. And so I'm generous. So they're a group of people really incredible, and I feel connected to their lives and as much as they are connected to mine.
As a choreographer, what kind of dancer excites you?
Yeah, it's interesting because the dancers I met that ended up working with me are people that have something special that I can't describe, and maybe it's talent, maybe it's a combination of passion and intelligence. I'm looking for people that are hungry to explore themselves, to take the most out of the moment. I'm a learner, and I want to work with people that are learners, that want to learn.
What would be a dream project or dream collaboration?
I mean, for me, right now, this is quite the dream. Being able to be in the space that I have in this theater. I mean, Theater and Orchestra Heidelberg may not be the most famous theater. Many people don't even know about Heidelberg so much, but it is wonderful. And I am very lucky to have the opportunity to be in a studio every day and to be able to create works in collaboration with an orchestra, with a composer like Ferran Creixent from Catalonia. He's incredible. He's done already 2 creations with us, a full composition. This is a dream. And so now what I'm thinking a lot is, how can I sustain myself? And that can only be if I keep growing. And so when I think of working with other people or other companies, I don't have that right now. I'm always searching within my own creation, for example, what kind of artist can I work that I haven't worked with? For example, this trilogy has been focused on music, dance, and visual arts as a tripod. And I've introduced even European Molecular Laboratory, which is here in Heidelberg, and working with scientists, or I want to work with the director of the sonology department of the university in Heidelberg, which is a very prestigious university, and he's specialized in one composer, so I want to work with that composer. And so I want to push the level of expertise that enters into my work.
It's already came out quite a lot, this the trilogy that you're working on. It would be interesting to hear your deeper layer thoughts on this subject, why it's important to you.
Yeah, I can understand the question so much because, of course, it is so huge.
Yes.
That's why I decided to do a trilogy, because how can I possibly talk about a generation in one piece? I mean, I need years to understand, and I need more work. So a trilogy made a lot of sense. And the beginning of the research was reading and talking to people and realizing that it's always about perspective. Mm-hmm. And do you look from the perspective of generation that came before, the baby boomers, or our parents, or do you look from this perspective? And even now we have already a younger generation coming after us that see the world very different. So what it means to be in this moment in time. And I think it helped me understand myself, but if you look at the trilogy more specifically, you see very different focuses. For example, the impression was focused on how did we see the 2000s in the 80s, like when I was born, or in the 90s, like what was this imagination we had about the future. And so the piece has this kind of sci-fi quality to it, and it makes us connect to a vision of a future that was maybe idealized, and then a little bit of a crash in terms of ideas of isolation, for example, of collective versus the individual. How do we find ourselves in these networks? And how is that affecting the sense of self or sense of belonging? And so impression was very much about all that. In that dimension, for example, was the middle piece of the trilogy, but also my second piece in Heidelberg. So for me, it was the moment to test grounds, to really push the borders of what's possible, at least of what I thought could be possible here in Heidelberg. Could the audience take on certain kind of risks? So it's a piece that talks as well about the idea of resources, for example, or creativity. So we had at the beginning, very simple material, for example, pieces of wood, pieces of plexiglass, and then I really opened the ground for the dancers to be creative. And so what can they do with these elements? And so it was a very creative creation, very much dealing with that, with things collapsing also. And they were creating houses, they were creating things that kept collapsing. So this idea of failure was very much involved in a community of people trying to build something. And so for me, it was like the millennials as the new adults dealing with the world that is collapsing and somewhat trying to be creative all the time. And then, the last part of the trilogy, Oscillation, kind of brings us back to the now, dealing with the now. And even though I started talking to scientists prior, and also artists like Bogomil Doringer in Amsterdam, to talk about the idea of oscillation between cells in terms of feedback and communication in collective behavior. So how do we work as a group, basically? My research came from that. And how do we function? So we're constantly trying to understand how can we work better. But when we talk about dance and science, for example, as a connection, as a kind of parallel view, it is a world that we in a way don't understand, but we must relate to it, we must understand it. And so our life has become very mathematical. How far and how close do we come, and how can we analyze that, and how that keeps me away from you, and as much as I want to relate to you, it has to be through distance. And so I think this piece has made the now the topic of the millennial generation, but also everyone is involved in this kind of social choreography of distance and space. So I think it's very interesting, the moment we're living for dance.
Your personal advice to young, aspiring dancer or choreographer?
Ooh, advice. That makes me feel old. But I understand what you mean. But it's just hard to, maybe I'm just being a millennial, not wanting to be an adult and grow. And
being millennial, isn't it?
Yeah, that's totally right. And sometimes that's why maybe, people above us don't take it seriously. But I think the fact that I'm always trying to say I'm learning, I'm new, this is the beginning, I'm a beginner, to realize that there is always a beginning. And I think there is something so strong about the anticipation of the beginning. This comes from working with Gregor Brawl from Song of the God Theatre in Poland. And he always told us to realize the power of the beginning. Right before something's about to start, we are the most present and we're the most alive. And so we become so numb. And we think we're passionate, we think we're present, but we're not. Now has so much potential. And I think that would be my advice. No matter what happened yesterday, slap yourself and get back to the now, because the now has so much to offer.
Why dance is important?
I mean, you're talking to someone that you take dance away, and I don't know what I do with myself. Dance is one of the oldest, deepest art forms in culture, and that has formed us. I think it's embedded in our blood. I mean, it comes from so far away that when I dance, it's not, I know that I belong in something much older than this physical body. The knowledge that comes within my body when I dance, it cannot be learned. It connects me to my ancestors. And so it's something that is within us. I mean, and I see dance all the time, everywhere. Right now, it's connecting us, it's reminding us that more and more in relation to technology, we go back to our bodies. So we're kind of drawn back to understand what is in our bodies, and this knowledge, how choreography is kept in our nervous system, how dance is in the body, and nothing can be stronger than the body. So I think we live in a time where dance is very relevant.
I want to thank you so much for participating. It was fantastic first to reconnect with you and to see you.
Well, thank you so much, Anton. This is really great, and good luck with Deep Dive Dance and all the talks you're doing. I think this is fantastic.
Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you found this interview interesting and inspiring.